Then on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 6 matchup between the Texas Tech Red Raiders and the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Huge matchup for both these teams coming up here in Week 6. You got Texas Tech, who's off to a 3-2 start, which is not bad considering Texas Tech has played 4 ranked opponents in their first 5 weeks, and they're taking on a top 10 team here in Week 6, Oklahoma State, who is still undefeated. They're 4-0 to start off this season. And Texas Tech is looking to pull up a huge upset while Oklahoma State looks to remain undefeated. Definitely a huge matchup coming up here in Week 6. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting with your team trends. Texas Tech lost to K-State 28-37 in their Week 5 matchup, and K-State is playing very well right now. They beat Oklahoma before taking on Texas Tech last week. So, yeah, K-State looking like one of the top teams in the Big 12 right now. Disappointing loss, obviously, for Texas Tech. Once again, this team has played a very difficult first 5 weeks. Usually your first few games are fairly easy, right? I mean, they're non-conference games, but for Texas Tech, it's been the opposite. This team has played, once again, 4 ranked opponents in their first 5 games. This will be their 5th ranked opponent going up against Oklahoma State in their first 6 games, which is pretty remarkable. They beat Houston, they beat Texas, 2 of their ranked opponents there. They did lose to NC State, who turns out to be one of the top teams in the ACC this season. And, of course, they lost to K-State this past weekend, but they're 3-2 to start the season. And this is a Texas Tech team that should not be underestimated. Oklahoma State on the flip side beat Baylor 36-25. Good win for the Cowboys, considering obviously how the Big 12 championship game turned out last season. I'm sure Oklahoma State had a chip on their shoulder in that matchup, so a huge win for Oklahoma State there, beating Baylor, the 16th ranked team in the nation last week. They're 4-0 to start off the season. Games be on Saturday, October 8th in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So the Cowboys are the home team for this matchup. And their kickoff is 2:30 p.m. Central. So Oklahoma State being the home team, they do have an advantage there, which is definitely something to keep in mind. Spread's going Oklahoma State by 9.5. Over-under is 70, and your FPI is going Oklahoma State 77.1%. So the Cowboys are favored by, you could say, a decent margin for this matchup, which, whether it surprises you or not, I mean, Oklahoma State is ranked 7th, and Texas Tech is unranked. But then again, I feel like Texas Tech is actually a pretty good team this season. It's just, once again, they've played a pretty difficult first 5 games. And, even if you look back to Week 1, they just dominated Murray State 63-10. I understand Murray State is an FCS team, but nonetheless, Texas Tech, considering their tough games, I feel like that they've fared out pretty well. Series history, it's actually tied at 23. So the winner of this game takes the overall series, for the moment at least. Win streak is Oklahoma State by 2, and Oklahoma State has won 8 out of the past 10 against Texas Tech. So, it's been overall a split series if you're looking at the long term, but in recent history, Oklahoma State has had plenty of success against Texas Tech. Your stat comparison for this one, Texas Tech 63rd in points per game, 84th in points allowed. They are 9th in pass yards a game, 104th in rush yards a game. So, looking at that, Texas Tech offensively is very strong in the passing game. You got Donovan Smith, who is having a great season so far, 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. Does have 7 picks on the season, so that is the main concern here is his turnovers. If he could limit the amount of interceptions that he throws, I feel like this Texas Tech team could be 4-1 or 5-0 right now. It's the turnovers that obviously make a difference. 104th in rush yards a game, which isn't very good. And for yards allowed, decent on the defensive side of the ball, 32nd in passing, but obviously 91st in rush defense isn't ideal. But for Oklahoma State, 8th in points per game, 75th in points allowed. They are 27th in pass yards a game, 51st in rush yards a game, and then for yards allowed, 128th in passing. That is something to really keep an eye on there. And then they're 43rd in rush yards allowed. So if you're looking at yardage-wise, Texas Tech is averaging 362 pass yards a game this season. Oklahoma State is allowing 285. They're allowing 285 pass yards a game so far this season. So, that's something to keep an eye on here. Texas Tech's main strength on offense is far and away the passing game. And Oklahoma State's biggest weakness defensively is far and away the passing defense. So that is something to keep in mind here. That's a pretty good matchup for Texas Tech in this matchup if you're looking at it statistically. Your recent matchups, Texas Tech lost to K-State 20-37, beat Texas 37-34 in overtime. That was a huge win for Texas Tech. Lost to NC State the week before, 14-27. NC State, once again, one of the top teams in the ACC. And then they beat Houston, who was ranked 25th in the nation. Turns out Houston is going to be a big disappointment this season, it seems. They beat them, though, 33-30. And they beat Murray State in week 1, 63-10. As for Oklahoma State, beat Baylor 36-25. That was the first really good win of the season for Oklahoma State. They beat UAPB 63-7, beat Arizona State 34-17, and beat Central Michigan 58-44. So they've allowed a lot of points at some points this season. I mean, Central Michigan allowed 44 there, but I mean, since then, I feel like this defense has gotten better. I mean, they allowed 25 against Baylor, but that's not terrible. And offensively, there's no doubt Oklahoma State is that's their main strength is their offense. I mean, their defense is okay, but especially that passing defense, allowing 285 yards per game. That's something that needs to be fixed if Oklahoma State wants to be a true national contender at the end of the day. Key points for this one: Texas Tech 3-2 on the season, Oklahoma State 4-0. Obviously, Texas Tech is a much improved team that shows potential. I mean, I feel like this is a team that's better than they were last year. I mean, Texas Tech wasn't bad last year. It was their best season since, I mean, you could say 2017 at the least. They got up to 7-6. They won a bowl game. It wasn't a bad season for Texas Tech, but I feel like this team is, I mean, they've got the talent to be better than they were last season. I mean, this could be the best. Honestly, this could be the best team that we've seen out of Texas Tech since 2015 or even 2013. So, I mean, they really show potential. They've played a tough first 5 games, and for them to be 3-2, they've beaten a couple of the ranked opponents. I think Texas Tech is pretty good. They're very strong in the passing game. Once again, Donovan Smith he's so far been a really good quarterback this season. I mean, there's no mistake that Texas Tech is averaging 360 pass yards a game, and this is a chance for Texas Tech to obviously make a statement, pull off another big upset. Now, as for Oklahoma State, this team is all around very strong on offense. That is the key thing for Oklahoma State. They're averaging 47 points a game, which is outstanding. And obviously on defense, they've been a bit inconsistent at times, but since week 1, I would say this defense has gotten better. But it still needs to get better, though, if Oklahoma State wants to be a true college football playoff / national contender. And for Oklahoma State, they got the home field advantage. Chance for a quality win here. I'd say Texas Tech is a pretty good team, so this is an opportunity for Oklahoma State to get another quality win on the schedule. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, one of the bigger matchups coming up here in week 6. And I'm going to go with the upset here. 34-31 is my predicted final score. I'm going with Texas Tech in a fairly big upset here. I think Texas Tech matches up really well with Oklahoma State, and obviously Oklahoma State being at home. It's an afternoon game. They got the home field advantage. They're coming off of a big win. Potentially that big win from last week potentially makes this team off to a slower start maybe in this matchup, because I can guarantee you Oklahoma State has been focusing, and they circled that Baylor game on their calendars several months ago. And for Texas Tech to sneak up the next week, and Texas Tech is a team that should not be underestimated, I'm going to go with Texas Tech here, 34-31. This is obviously a tough one to predict. It's very close, but I think Texas Tech really stands a chance. With their passing game, Oklahoma State is going to have to play much better than they have been defensively, especially in the passing defense, if they want to stand a chance here. So I'm going to say Texas Tech 34-31. Over-under is 70. I'll take the under for this one, and Texas Tech to cover the spread in the end. So predicting a big upset here. We'll see what happens, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.